Bringer of brutality, destroyer of the airwaves and vocal powerhouse for two of Australia's best and highly regarded metal bands, Low and Hadal Moore. Thank you so much for making the time to have a chat with me, mate. I know you had a gig last night at Frankie's Pizza and then an early flight to a 10-hour day at work, so thanks so much, mate. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure, mate. I'm more than happy to talk about things that will never make us any money but fill us with lots of joy and to give people deafness.
Exactly, we love it. That's the joy of being a metalhead, eh? We all do it for the love of it. And guys like you work especially hard. What was the gig like last night? I hear good things about Frankie's Pizza, like supporting the local scene and everything. And what was that show like in the venue?
It's a fantastic turnout. Like, we're very blessed to have a good lineup of, like, centered around Sumeru's last show of their tour. They just done the Deaf Goddess tour, so they've just been going up every weekend up along the major cities with their new record that they've been doing, and it's very, like, sludge orientated, very blackened hardcore sort of a crowd. Everyone really loved it. That's like, the sound in there can be a little bit iffy, but you get enough human bodies in there to soak it up. It's going to be great. The pizza's pretty cheap. They got 250 something kinds of craft beer on tap. So it's just a good night, and everyone got off on it, even though it was going into a school night and jet lag and all that. But I had a great time, and we'll be back there again for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. That's good. There's a few venues like that here in Adelaide that just do great things, supporting the local scene and putting on the bands and everything and getting the punters out. That's what it's all about, supporting the local scene.
Definitely.
Can you remember where your love of music first began, mate?
Well, I got into music quite late, actually. I was more into cartoons and collecting dinosaur toys and looking for reptiles in my spare time in the bush. So I think it was more along the fact of theatrical nature of stuff when I hit in my teens, things like Ministry, Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, Fear Factory, Slipknot as well. All these kind of things, they really sparked my interest, and I thought to myself, I want to be that. I need to be on that stage, and I want to express myself and write lyrics and do that as a narrative and have a bit of a cathartic experience to be able to go out there and perform for people. And my first concert I ever saw was Alice Cooper, so it was a great, bookmark in my little history of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go with it.
Oh, that's awesome. So those kind of bands, that's kind of what really, they inspired you, did they? And kind of drove you into songwriting and singing? What kind of inspired you into going into that side of it and really chasing that down?
I think just working on your craft. Like, you first of all, when you start off as your teenage years, your formative years, it's often just a blatant, imitation game of what you like about certain things, and then along the way you discover more of a confidence in what you want to do and the aesthetic and the sound that you want to create as a vocalist or a guitarist or whatever, and you put a lot of your own time and energy into it. And everyone that's a metalhead, at least as far as I know, is a nerd for something. So you really go down a rabbit hole of the things that you love and that you want to have as the themes and stuff for when you're writing music, and just always being open, I guess, to being influenced by stuff like, art exhibitions or history books, and just paying attention to the news and just being aware of things around you. It's going to be able to shape the influences of what you're doing.
Yeah, constantly honing your craft and taking new ideas and thoughts and expressions from the world.
Definitely. Like, those people that would say, I don't listen to other people's music, or, I don't really do media or social media or stuff like that. I think that's a little bit bogus. Like, you don't have to be completely tapped into things, but being shut off, you're not going to be able to be influenced and create better songs and better lyrics and stuff if you just shut yourself off in a vacuum.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't. I hear some people saying that, and I've read some different reports here and there of saying people don't explore new music after a certain age. But I'd be lost without exploring that. I
would say that there's a lot of grown men in Australia that have probably got the same Jimmy Barnes CD still sitting in their car or in their shed somewhere, and they have not let that out of the player for the last 35 years. So it's just a bit scary to know that you'd stagnate and you wouldn't want to experience new things and see what's coming through. Like, I think at the very moment, Australia's music scene is really like having a resurgence. It's going through this new renaissance because of this awfulness that's going on in the world at the moment. It really does inspire people to revolt and knock up the establishment and create new artworks.
Yeah, exactly. And like you're saying, like I couldn't handle that, but the last few years for me, like exploring new bands and seeing all the great talent we have here in Australia, it's just unreal, and it's blowing my mind every day. I couldn't just stagnate like that and only listen to the same Jimmy Barnes CD. Like, I tell you what.
But it's just, I think you just got to put yourself out there. You got to be supportive of your scene. I don't think it's very good to sort of, talk down to other bands that are coming through, or that might just be fledgling bands, or not pay your dues to the established ones. I think if everyone feeds the family, we all get fed, we all move along, we all go up the food chain, and we're all helping each other in this metal community.
Well, exactly, like great bands,
better stuff.
Great bands like yourself, with the two bands you're with, Low and Hadal Moore. You're the best in the world, mate. I've shared your music with one of my Swedish friends, Peps, and he was just blown away with the talent of you guys. And you should be playing all over the world. And I think more Australians need to support guys like yourself. As I was saying with Low, you sing for Low. Do you mind telling us a little bit about backstory about who Low are and how you guys got together?
Well, Low were already established as a Sydney-based blackened hardcore sludge metal, post-metal sort of a band. Yep. They were made up of musicians that had already been in established bands of that scene. They were all mutual friends, and they decided that they wanted to go in a different direction and be super focused in what they did. So they had already existed for 2 albums before I came on board as the replacement singer.
Okay.
I was very lucky that, they're on a Berlin label with Flagellic Records, so The Ocean, Cult Luna, that kind of stuff. And they were just very focused on the direction of what they want to create. And that fit in well with me because I got along quite well with them as friends growing up around that area, and also just what they wanted to achieve with the future recordings. They wanted a more live sound, a more raw sound.
Yep.
And from my sort of hardcore background of my previous bands, I was able to sort of lend a nice rasp and a nice aggression to that and really amp up the theatrical nature of the live shows. So after that, I've already been with those guys for about, say, 4 years now, and we've toured Japan, toured Europe, and done a whole bunch of great support slots with international bands that have come out to Australia. So I've been super grateful to the people that have welcomed me into that family, and also that come to all the gigs. It's a really, really healthy vibe that I'm seeing over the last 12 months.
Well, that Vestigial album, I went back and checked that out because I'd heard of you, Hadal Moore, and first seen when I don't think you joined not too long after in 2016. It was kind of the first time I'd seen Hadal Moore, and I was just blown away with your vocal delivery, the drums of Rob Bren, the guitar. It was just insane. It just seeing you guys live at that New Dead Metal Fest in September, it was?
Yes,
in 2016 just blew me away, man. I was instantly sold and a fan of you guys. It was just unreal, eh?
Well, thanks for that, man. It's New Dead would have to be probably my top 2 favourite festivals and gigs to play in Australia. It's such a well-organised day. I really love the fact that it is centred around the more obscure, the more extreme niches of Australian heavy music, and it just seems to be a massive party from start to finish. And not to mention, when I fly down to Adelaide and do the gigs, I make sure I go do nerdy stuff the next day, like check out the craft breweries and also go to the Adelaide Zoo and check out the old giant pandas. Yeah,
Northie's doing a great job with that New Dead Metal Fest Day, and this year looks unreal. You're there with Low and with Hadal Moore, so be fairly busy, but you're checking out a few of the bands as well.
Yeah, I'm doing the old double throat duty. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to just take it pretty easy on the old frothies between sets because I don't want to be doing a poor-ass effort for when I go on later on stage. But having, Black Dahlia Murder and Aborted on the bill certainly does push that profile of the festival up a lot for all the locals in Adelaide. And I'm foreseeing there's going to be a hell of a lot of people that are going to get their friends together and do a metal road trip across the border to come watch. So I'm really pumped. It's probably the highlight for playing this year.
Oh, it's a great show. I've covered it the last couple of years for Crannk, and I was there last year, and it's going to be a great show again this year, eh? So And the one thing I like about it is guys like yourself, you get out there, you play, and then you're amongst the crowd as well. So, and you're with the fans and you're with the people, and that's what I love about the Australian scene.
Well, I'm not too precious about what happens off stage. You know, like I take it very seriously when we do a gig, but afterwards, you know, I am still a massive fan of heavy music,
Yep.
even though I have to play it a lot and listen to it a lot. I want to be out there. I want to see the new bands coming through, and you know, I get excited when I see local bands that are doing something different, or you know, there's someone that's reinvented their next albums and recordings. I'm always happy to be a gig pig and go along and get drunk and hang out with people and talk shit.
And that's what I love about this metal community we have here in Australia. Like guys like yourself get out there and you support the other bands as well. It's not like, I'm just playing my show and I'm going back home, you know. You're out there, we're all supporting each other and trying to make this Australian scene thrive and grow.
Definitely. It's the same as our film industry. It's a very grassroots, but for the small output that we do have, it's very, very high quality. It's very passionate, and because we are fighting from the bottom of the stream to get up to the top of the waterfall, as opposed to, say, like America and Europe, who act as if that is the centre of the world when it comes to culture and arts. We already have that instillness in us to want to strive and be better and be more professional and be more extreme and just really pour your heart out into what you create.
For sure. As I was saying, you took over the vocal shredding duties in 2016 for Hadal Moore, and you helped deliver with that amazing album, The Ulm, which for me was one of my favourite releases of 2017. How did that all happen, and what was that process like?
It was a trial by fire. That was a very full-on experience. We are very nerdy dudes. We love that sort of genre of music. We do set ourselves a high bar to achieve when we are recording. For me, it was a daunting task because they had actually penned the entire album bar the lyrics ready to go, and they like all the demos were done. It was completely finished. And I had an interview to try out to be their vocalist. Luke Frison, that was the singer for Jack the Stripper, had put me in touch with the boys, and I was only interested if it was going to be like where it was going to be the calibre of an output that I could be proud to put my voice on. Yep. And I went along, and I was so impressed with the sounds that the guys were creating for the record. But then they said, well, you've got the job. You've got a month and a half to write, say, 10, 11 songs and record them. So we were in a boot camp pretty much, Nicholas and I, and we had to record track after track into the wee hours of the morning after work or before work or every single weekend till it was all finished. And then we went straight away and did a whole string of tours straight off the back of it. So I was very happy with how it turned out. It's very eccentric. It's very extreme. It's a little bit left of field. So we don't get bored when we write music, and with the EP that we'll be playing with this string of shows coming up, I'm very excited to have people hear it and bang their heads along.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to it too. So what has the musical journey been like for you over the last couple of years, I suppose, with those two great albums you brought out, with the Vestigial album with Low and the, as we're just saying, with the Ulm, and you've just finished doing the Charlatan EP, you've brought out the Idolatry. So how are you coping with it all? How's it been for you, mate, so far?
Rewarding, but very, very sacrificing as well. Like,
yep.
you do become a bit of a martyr for your art. Your body takes a toll. Your voice will take a toll if you don't look after it. And yeah, you've got to look after your body. That's your machine. That's your tool. That's what you got to do. You got to be staying interested and staying passionate about what you're doing, so you don't do a bump show or you don't release a crappy song. It's just being around people that are creative. It's a very inspiring, very exciting thing. It's a great relationship. It's a great dialogue that you can have when you meet band members that you want to create stuff with, and you're excited to turn up to rehearsal. You're excited to go in the studio. If you've got that, if you're all on the same page, the world's your oyster. You can just power through and release something that you're really happy with.
Yep. Yeah, you're a pretty professional crew there. Rob Brenz has done a lot too with drums. He's pretty unreal on the drums there. Can you tell me about where you drew on some of your inspiration for the songwriting process with this forthcoming EP, Charlatan for Hadal More?
I think we took a step back from being just so heavily handed with the technical, the wizardry of being able to play extremely difficult stuff or extremely kooky stuff, and get to the root of a great riff, of a great groove, something that the punters and yourself can sink your head into, that really primal thing of wanting to headbang along, of wanting to research the lyrics and go into that journey with the choruses. So these are more anthemic sort of songs compared to the previous release album. It's still very aggressive, still very tight and like crazy riffs going on, but more focus on that drive that's coming through the center of each song that's really going to stick in your head.
Awesome. The first single, Idolatry, that came out a week or so ago. Can you tell me a little bit about what that track means to you?
Well, it means to me, I don't want to really label too many things about this album, like in the lyrical context, because I like to keep the images a bit freewheeling and people can put their own meanings to it. The Charlatan, the key word of the EP, is all about the puppets and the puppet masters of what's going on, particularly in the theatre of war and the theatre of politics in the West, and also in places like Korea and China and Russia. And I really do like that idea of how many masks someone can wear and how many other people are orchestrating what goes on behind the scenes. And it can be in your own home, it can be, in your workplace, it can be in politics, it can be in the environment, all these things that people will pull the wool over your eyes, and they will be that preacher at the end of the pulpit screaming in your face. And sometimes if you have enough apathy, and it happens too much, too often, all these horrendous things, you just become a sheep to it. You push your head down, you look at your phone, and there could be a bomb going off behind you and you wouldn't even know.
Yep.
And I really like that imagery, and it's very poignant to how people are living their lives at the moment.
So do I. I think it is quite poignant to how people are living their lives. You got some pretty big shows coming up next weekend. You're off to Brisbane, is it, with Low for Dead of Winter Festival?
That is correct. Yeah, we'll get a little bit of a humidity stomp up there, and it's now in Jubilee and the Tivoli, so it's become twice as big as it was last year. Luckily, I don't think we're on too late in the day, because the Queenslanders, they do like to hit the piss pretty early for the festival, and some of them are pretty much asleep standing up by the time like 9 p.m. rolls around. So I'm more than happy to play while the sun's still up and still be able to see great bands like my mates from Autopsy and all those guys. So it's a fantastic day.
Awesome. And you also got that those Archspire shows with Psychroptic coming up as well, which will be really cool.
Yeah, we are very stoked with that. That's a great platform for us to, usher out this new EP, Charlatan, and have people that are already, inclined to that extreme music and that the blast beats and the the guttural vocals and the screeching and whatnot. It's going to be fantastic, and Psychroptic, they're an institution in Australia, and I'm extremely psyched to be playing more than one show and doing it night after night.
It's going to be unreal. The Canadian editor actually hit me up on Archspire, and unreal band as well. Canadians coming over. Thanks so much, mate. Hey, did you want to pick out a track